Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Benny Ricciardi with rotocurve.com, and I'm here with our DraftKings NBA FADES video for Wednesday, February 24th. The idea of the FADES video is these are a couple guys who we think are going to be pretty highly owned that we are not going to be using in our lineups tonight. These are guys that we think are going to be, overvalued, and we think they're going to have trouble getting the upside that we look for in the tournament. Now, remember, when we talk about these fades, it doesn't mean that these guys might not be solid cash game plays. When we talk about fades, we're really only talking about tournaments. It doesn't make sense to fade a guy in a cash game if you think he can get you a solid, 5.5x or so. But some of these guys are guys that we just do not see how they're going to make it to their upside today, and it would be silly to use them in tournaments. So let's call up the slideshow and talk about some of the guys who are on this list for us. The three guys we're really going to be talking about are Draymond Green at 8,700, Kristaps Porzingis at 6,700, and Jamal Crawford, who's jumped up to 5,700. The first guy we're going to talk about is Draymond. Now, he's favored by 9 versus the Heat with a total of only 214. Now, 214 sounds like a big number, but it's actually a pretty low total for the Golden State Warriors. They've played a lot of games in the 220s or above and had some games, some of their recent games that even went over in the 230, 240 range. Now, we know that Miami does play a slower pace. They have a pretty solid defense, and there's also a risk that Miami could get blown out in this game because, remember, they are playing without Chris Bosh, and it wasn't like they were actually a great team even when Bosh was in there. But now they're rolling out guys like, Josh McRoberts and Amari Stoudemire and Udonis Haslem as their starting power forward. And against a team as good as Golden State, that could spell out disaster, especially with the matchup being for Draymond. Now, the thing that has me a little bit concerned here is his price is 8,700. It's a little friendlier on some of the other sites where I would actually consider him. But at 8,700 here, we're going to need him to get us probably about 53 fantasy points. Now, he has only gone over 4.6x once in his last 6 games. So he's definitely not somebody who's on a hot streak or on the uptick. I'd like to see that price come down even more before I want to get back in on him on a site like DraftKings. Now, even 2 games ago when he had a triple-double, he still only put up 50 fantasy points. 50 fantasy points might sound like a ton, but it's only been 5.5x for him at the price of $9K that he's been sitting at, in this range over the last couple of weeks. Now, like we said, it doesn't mean he's not a solid cash game play, but if he's not going to be able to get us over 6x, he's really not going to be a guy that we really want to put in there in tournaments. There are other high-priced options that we'd be willing to spend up on more. And again, if a guy needs a triple-double just to get the 5.5x, you're basically expecting a monster game out of him in order for him to return value for you. And I just don't know if we have that in Draymond against, in this matchup with the Heat here. Next guy I want to talk about is Kristaps Porzingis. His team's an 8-point underdog versus the Pacers, which means that they're really only expecting the Knicks to score about 96, 97 points in this one. Porzingis has been overowned for a while now. I mean, he's had some flashes where he goes in like 2 or 3 game stretches where he scores 40 fantasy points for you, but then he tends to disappear and have a game where he scores 20 or 27 or 31 and just really underperforms the value that you would expect out of him. He's actually only reached 5x to be a good cash game play in 10 of his last 25 games. So only 40% of the time has he even given you the floor that you need to consider him for a cash game. And the 6x ceiling that we need is something that he's only reached in 5 of those same 25 games. So of the 10 games that he, 5 games he's gone 6x or better. There's been 5 other games where he's gone at least 5x to 6x. And then the other 15 games that he's played in the last 25 have been games where he's been below 5x value, which, like I said, makes him not even a good play in cash games and definitely not a good play for tournaments. He has a pretty tough matchup versus the Pacers here. And the other thing I don't like about him is his minutes are down lately, mostly because Robin Lopez's minutes are up. Rolo's been playing a little more. He's been playing pretty well lately and is a guy that I would actually consider. And Rolo's increased role and increased minutes seem to be coming at the expense of Kristaps Porzingis. So I do still like Porzingis as a guy who I think is going to do decently and play around 28 to 30 minutes here. I just don't think he has the huge upside that he had when he was playing a lot more minutes than that and looking for a shot a lot more and blocking more shots. I mean, you look at his last couple games, his rebounding's down, his assists are down, his shots, his field goal attempts are down, his block shots are down. I mean, basically across the board, everything that, Porzingis gives you, other than maybe the scoring, which I think has been kind of steady, everything else has been down. So I don't, even though his price has come down a little bit, it's not like 6,700 is cheap. At this price, I think there are definitely some guys a little bit cheaper than him who I'd rather use. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm going to be fading Porzingis today. The last guy I want to talk about is Jamal Crawford, who's been a very popular option over the last week. He's in a game where the total is 212, and his team is favored by 10.5. Now, like I said, Crawford's been very good. People have been using him a lot last week. But the other thing is we've seen his price jump up now in the past month from a low of 4,200 up to 5,700 here today. And remember, this is a guy who doesn't even start anymore. Plus, with Jeff Green in the mix, we've seen his production start to drop a little bit in the last few games. Now, you can get J.J. Redick, who is the starter, for only $5,000. It's not that Crawford hasn't outscored Redick here, but Crawford is a very points-dependent kind of guy. And he can get his points, but he doesn't really do a ton of the other stats. At the price that he's at right now, you basically need 34 points out of him for him to make, upside value for you in a tournament. He's only had 5 games all season in the 50-something games they've played where he's had 34 points or more. So it's not something that's very likely. I'd say probably less than 10% chance. He's averaging just under 30 fantasy points in his last 11 games. But again, 30 fantasy points at his price that's almost 6x right now is basically only, a 5x return. So it might make him a decent, solid cash game play. But I don't think that the upside is still there at Crawford when you have to pay up to $5,700 for him. Again, it's not that we don't like these guys. We actually do like these guys, and we know you're going to hear their names because a lot of other people are going to be mentioning them. We just think that these are some of the guys who are going to have the biggest struggle to reach their upside value. And if upside is what it really takes to win a tournament, these are some of the guys who are going to be fading or staying away from. So thank you guys for joining us here again at rotocurve.com. And as always, stay classy, DFS.